Hello everyone and welcome to this important video where we discuss how I generate alpha over a Tesla core position. In other words, if you know, like I think I know, where Tesla is going to go in the next 5 years, if you have a high level of confidence in the Tesla story, in the advent of humanoid robots, in the advent of embodied AI, robotaxis, and Elon's ability to make it all happen, to transform the world into a sustainable, enormous labor force, then what do you do if you think about money? Of course, it's very nice to make 20 or 30 times your money in 5 years. But if you have that level of certainty, of course, the temptation is high to try to generate alpha over 100% Tesla core position. In other words, I'm thinking about the best way to trade to make sure you invest, or I invest in Tesla, but generate more returns than I would make if I have 100% investment in Tesla. This is very dangerous to do it yourself. You need to really know what you're doing. It requires a whole bunch of things. So please do not take this as investment advice. Even 100% Tesla investment is very risky. Going above that is very, very risky and requires you to very actively manage everything. And you're more likely than not to lose money on it. So please don't copy anything. I want to provide this transparency so you understand how I think about it and maybe you can take something away from it. So I prepared a little bit of a slideshow here, and I want to guide you through the way I think around this. So the objective here is to implement a winning Tesla trade with the thesis that Tesla will reach very likely a share price of 10,970 by 2030. That is at least my analysis. If I know that, how do I trade the stock? The objective is to generate a 125 5-year compound annual growth rate. This is 100% alpha over that return and make roughly 57 times my money. In order to do that, we need to recognize 4 strategic dimensions of the stock, and we have to understand how to execute. I will get to this in the end. So what are these 4 dimensions I'm looking at? The 4 dimensions to truly understand and predict Tesla's stock, also in the mid and short term, of course, with decreasing precision short term. Number 1, you start with a fundamental insight. So what does it mean? Fundamental analysis of Tesla. It means you have to understand the predicted path of civilization, the advent of robots, the demand for robots, the advent of robotaxis and robots. You have to understand the underlying technology, embodied AI, AI chips, AI scale, the role of XAI, and you have to understand the competition. Is there competition? What is the level of threat of the competition in all verticals from EVs and cars and OEMs? Are they a threat or not? Are they going out of business by 2026? The answer is yes, most of them will. So cars are done and toast, and most cars will transition into a Tesla platform, at least in the West. What about the robots? What about Figure 1? What about the Chinese? Well, that is a much more complex question, but are they competitive robots? Maybe in China, but we will address it in other dimensions, what that means. What about robotaxis? What about Waymo? Is that competition? The answer, of course, is not really. They can't scale. They have a cost problem, but you need to understand all these things. Then demand. Do you really understand the level of demand that Optimus will unlock? So all of these fundamental insights require us to have a good understanding of first principles of civilization, first principles of human behavior, first principles of government actors, and all these things. And then, of course, we have to model the future business models out to the revenue streams of the core business, the revenue stream of Optimus going forward, the revenue stream of FSD going forward. So this is a big chunk of stuff you need to get under control. The interesting thing is on YouTube, fundamental insights are probably 80 to 90% of all Tesla talk. You know, that's Futuraza, Brian, great guy. We have the cyber bulls that talk about this a lot, very competently. Faza talks about it. A lot of people talk about the fundamentals, all the test drivers, the AI test drivers, Full Mars Catalog, all the great YouTubers, they really focus on the fundamental insights because that's the interesting piece. And it's a huge playground for everyone. Who doesn't want to understand the future? Who doesn't want to understand humanoid robots and Tesla and what Elon is doing? All of that is fundamental when it comes to Tesla and their technologies. Okay, Let's assume you understand all of these things. You have analyzed it. You have looked at all the models, the revenue streams. You have quantified them. Great. So now you understand where Tesla is fundamentally positioned and where it's going. Now, in order to put on your alpha trade, you need to add to the fundamental insights technical analysis. And I know many people who are long-term holders and investors, they hate technical analysis and they think it's all voodoo with the charts and the little, lines in the charts, retracement lines and all kinds of things, moving averages. My take on it is trading a stock or investing in a stock with leverage absolutely requires you to be good at technical analysis. But that doesn't mean you need to buy into the voodoo, the chart voodoo. It just means to have some common sense and some quantified understanding. When is the stock in a run-up movement? When is it in a drop or a bear market? When is it in sideways channels for multiple weeks or maybe a month where it just bounces off resistance on the bottom and top? And how do you quantify that? Why is this so important? Well, if you are invested 100% in Tesla, it's not important. You just hold. But if you are invested more than 100% in Tesla, if you're leveraged at any point in time, let's say 1.5x or 2x or 3x or 5x, you cannot afford a 10% drop, or you cannot afford a 20% drop, whatever your leverage is. So if you're greedy, you take risks. And these risks are that even if you're right fundamentally, if you are leveraged, if you invested $500 and you end up at $10,000, you can lose all your money in between if you're leveraged. Therefore, you need technical analysis, both to protect yourself if you're leveraged, and you need technical analysis to actually get leveraged at the right moment. This is a very dangerous game, and you have to be very cautious about it. The important thing is why this is set apart from trading is because I'm doing this around a core position of roughly 100%, and I'm adding leverage around it or deleveraging when things get very dangerous. So you need to combine these two if you really want to generate alpha over the stock. Dimension number 3 is macro. And macro is something that the Tesla community at large pretty much ignores. I would say 20% is technical discussions on YouTube that are very technical and sometimes a little narrow-minded. 80% are great fundamental discussions and observations and data collection and information collection. And basically 0%, maybe 1% are macro considerations. And macro considerations are also extremely important if you are leveraged. Why? Even if you get 100% right on the fundamental level, if you understand, okay, it's going to 10,000, I understand Optimus, I understand the timelines when Optimus launches, very likely end of 2025, maybe 2026. You understand version 13 full self-driving is very much a confirmation we are on the right path for a pilot launch in 2025 for robotaxi. You understand the EV advantage, you understand the strategic advantage of Optimus over the Chinese competitors, and so on and so forth. And then combine it with a 100% understanding of your technical situation this week or next week. Oh, we are in a run-up, we are approaching 500, but actually, technically, this can just break through 500 and go all the way to whatever right now. Even if you understand all these things, you need to also deeply look into macro and have an eye on the markets. Why? If there is any black swan event, like, for example, Russia uses nukes or whatever, or the Biden administration in a last-ditch attempt to create World War III does something bad with Russia, you can have all the fundamentals on your side. You can even have all the technicals on your side. The market's going to crash. And Tesla is very likely going to crash with their beta multiplier on it. So, P drops 20%, Tesla drops 40%. Unless it's in a super bull run, then it drops maybe with 1x S&P. In either case, you are toast if you are leveraged. So macro, you need to watch the markets. You have to understand, the political situation. You have to understand general market correction risk. You have to also understand technicals of the market. For example, in Q1 2025, there's a very significant chance we just see a pullback of the markets. I don't know how high exactly, maybe 40%, 50%. But you can't afford that. You can't afford to ignore that. Just look at your fundamental and technicals, and the market kills you from the side, out of left field, right? So global conflict, watch that, and news. Watch market correction risks, recession, all kinds of stuff, but also technical reactions of the greater market, S&P, and so on. You have to understand economic sentiment. If everyone gets bearish suddenly, that's also a big indicator outside the market. And of course, interest rates and things like that. So what does the market do completely independent of Tesla? Because Tesla, as all stocks, is also a function of the market to some extent. And what I want in a macro situation is I want a bullish sentiment, or I want a neutral sentiment. So right now, year-end rally, we are pretty, bullish on the whole thing. Trump still gets the market a bonus. This all can change in Q1, but for now, macro for me is a nice neutral check mark, so I can focus on fundamental and technical insights. So now we have a good picture of the whole thing. And there's a final dimension that is actually unusually important for Tesla that has nothing to do with these three, or not much. And that is Elon's geopolitics. Why is that important, and what is that, and why it's different from macro? So macro is basically independent of Tesla, how markets behave and what the trends in the markets and politics and greater economics are. Whereas Elon geopolitics means anything that has to do with governments, with China, with global supply chains, with strategies, with Optimus' impact on global domination of nations, everything that is not something where it's just about revenue streams or technical movements, but about countries, about borders, about tariffs, about trade, about political favors or political resentments against Elon and his companies, or geostrategic interest in certain dimensions of Elon's empire. For example, SpaceX. For example, the satellites, Starlink. But more importantly than all of that, Optimus in the future. Why is this important? Because it impacts the stock, and it impacts Tesla's competitive situation, and it impacts demand, it impacts all kinds of stuff. And I think this is the most ignored piece of the Tesla equation that gives Tesla an enormous additional tailwind. And let me just explain a few things, what I see about that. The humanoid robots. People think about demand. They think about, are people really going to use it? Is it just going to be manufacturing, or is it just going to be nurses, or is it going to be drivers, or is it going to be at home? What people do not understand yet is the impact of humanoid robots on geopolitics and geostrategy, one of my favorite topics. When you think about the world's most advanced nations, Germany, Europe, Italy, Scandinavia, you think about South Korea, you think about Japan, but you also think about China and the US and Russia. All of these countries, specifically the most advanced countries like Japan, Germany, South Korea, Sweden, like these places, they have one giant problem. And that problem is basically 90% of the entire problem. And that problem are babies. We are going to get to this in different videos here, why I think we should also do something about babies. But why are babies an economic problem? Because they don't have people. They lack qualified labor. And if they import migrants, they're not going to help because they're not qualified. You need highly qualified labor. This is not something you can solve in the short term until now, because now humanoid robots come along. If you're a German specialty manufacturer who needs highly skilled labor at your manufacturing line for some crazy machinery or something, Optimus can solve the problem. So what does that mean? It means this is not just great for business. It becomes an existential question for everyone to have a humanoid robot strategy. And I guarantee you in the next 5 years, every developed advanced nation will have to make humanoid robots the number one priority politically, because it's the ultimate game changer. With humanoid robots, you can generate, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% growth in Germany, in Japan, in South Korea. And you can then take the great advantage these countries have, their unique IP, their unique ability to create highly specialized, extremely valuable goods that they cannot scale right now because they're too expensive, the labor. Suddenly, they become the big winners of the future. The people we discounted most, the most advanced high-tech nations, are becoming now the winners, not the losers, because they solve their central problem, labor. So that's just a little side note here. That's why geopolitics is so important. Only if you understand these dynamics will you understand the insane position Tesla is navigating itself into. You also understand why China, the central AI and robotics competitor for Tesla, also on the EV front, actually has no chance, because it doesn't matter if their technology is as good as Tesla's or if it's even better. Because never will Japan, Germany, the US allow Chinese robots to take over the labor force. It's a national security issue, and Tesla is well positioned and more trusted in all of these countries with local regional production capabilities. So, big things. In addition to these kinds of considerations, you have tariffs, right? You have to understand that Trump is also an enormous positive barrier for Elon's empire, because the central threat to all of Tesla's endeavors is China, and China will be blocked in Europe and it will be blocked in the US. It will not be able to compete with Tesla regardless how good they are. And that is huge. You have also free speech and culture and X, all these effects that, change culture in our countries in Elon's favor, that make his product more desirable. You have US and regional regulations. Now with Trump, for example, this is also the whole Trump train, why this is so powerful for Tesla. And then you have to understand local politics. Geopolitics includes local politics, Austin versus Phoenix versus LA and so on, versus Berlin versus Munich versus Stockholm versus Beijing, Shanghai, for a robotaxi rollout and for Optimus and so on and so forth. You probably understand what I mean here. These 4 different dimensions are actually orthogonal dimensions, more or less. They are completely independent of each other. Geopolitics influences some of the fundamentals. Technical is totally standalone. Macro is all the things that are not specific geopolitics for Elon and Tesla, but the general market, very important, because if this is perfectly bullish, this is bullish, this is bullish, and you have a total market implosion, Tesla is going to drop like a stone anyway. So you need to understand all 4 dimensions all the time. Now, that's my model. That's how you have to watch out for. And each of them is complicated, of course, very complicated. And they're all interlinked, even though they are orthogonal. And then finally, once you have that all under control, hopefully, then it's about execution. And here we are talking about trading and investing execution. So you need to be very good in understanding options, in understanding leverage, in understanding margin calls. You have to understand how to translate all these things, your macro strategy and insight, your geopolitical insight, your fundamental and technical insights, into trading strategies day by day and hour by hour. So you put the right triggers into your portfolio. You put on the right option strategies that reflect your convictions that you derive from these 4 dimensions. And you have to make real-time adjustments all the time. That is basically the price you pay for achieving alpha. But with that model, I think I have a pretty good take on it. It has paid off very nicely this year, and especially end of the year. I anticipate the rally. And my objective is always to generate significant alpha over a core position Tesla, because everyone can just buy Tesla and 30x their money. That's kind of easy. But if you have an opportunity like that is as clear as Tesla is and as low risk as Tesla is in the long term, it's just too tempting for me to generate alpha. And we will see very soon in a different video, I will talk about what the price that we see right now in Tesla stock actually means, and what we do about that price. This will be a different video. And people ask me sometimes, what do I do? Is it too late to get into Tesla, right? It's at 500. It's going to be at 500 very soon. Is that too late? Should I wait? That's a very smart question. And in the next video, we are going to take a look at how to answer this question rationally. Is 500 too expensive, or 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000? What is the price where you should not buy Tesla anymore? And until what price should you buy it? Of course, not investment advice. Rationally looking at a model. So I'm going to share a model with you that makes it kind of simple to understand when to invest, how much, at what price. So I hope to see you very soon. It's going to come out in the next couple of days. And until then, stay safe in the markets And I hope you have fun with Tesla, Elon, and a changing world.